Hello and welcome to the Low Budget Review Show. I'm your host Eric Smith, and today's book is Yamada, Monogatari to Break the Demon Gate by Richard Parks, and it's published by Prime Books. Came out in 2014, and I hope that at this moment and through the rest of this video you will pardon my mangling of Japanese names and such, but Yamada Monogatari is as close as I can come without proper lessons. Anyway, so in a nutshell, Yamada Monogatari, or Lord Yamada, or Yamada no Goji, is a minor nobleman who's pretty much lost everything, excuse me, living in ancient Japan. And this is a Japan where ghosts and demons and monsters and things are very real, and seems like most people are aware of them. And there have been some mysterious deaths in the capital city, and so Yamada is enlisted to investigate these deaths. And that's, again, as always, a very, very in a nutshell kind of thing. And I'll get into the details a little bit more. So, first of all, I love that cover. This is actually a follow-up. There is, in 2013, I think, was Yamada Monogatari Demon Hunter, which was a collection of short stories featuring this character. And essentially, what you have is an urban fantasy set in ancient Japan. That would be the Hollywood pitch, I think. Because, again, you have the supernatural mixing with the natural world. And Yamada is, I mean, he's not a private detective or anything, but people ask for his help and he gets involved in these things, dealing with the supernatural. I'm going to try to avoid a lot of the Japanese names and things so that I don't mangle things too much. So I'm not going to try to pronounce the name of the capital city. And I'm not perfectly clear on exactly when this takes place, but I did read something by the author on his blog or his website, whatever it is, and he did say that this actually takes place before the rise of the samurai. He said it's fine if it makes you comfortable thinking of Yamada as a samurai. But this actually takes place before that class existed as a class. And I always just thought of him as a samurai until I read that. But so it takes place before that. But still, not something you need to know. Everything you need to know is in here. You don't need to be an expert on Japan or ancient Japan or any of the other stuff. But it is a subject that I love. So that's why I picked up the short story collection, and I loved that. And so, of course, I picked up this, and there's supposed to be another one, I think, towards the end of this year. So Yamada, as I said, he's a minor nobleman who, in the past, his father was executed as a traitor. And so, of course, that means that the whole family essentially loses everything. Because in Japan, you know, it's all about honor and that sort of thing, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, so Yamada has a drinking problem. He lives in, I guess it's an inn, because basically he's renting a room. And he doesn't always have the money to pay. So, but the story starts with him being asked a favor. And he says yes, and this leads to a tragedy which just sets off a trigger, triggers a series of events that make up the bulk of the story. So, as I said, the main mystery are these strange deaths. Some people have been dying throughout the city, and no one has seen or heard anything. The killer has left no trace. It's completely a mystery. And Prince Kanemore. See, again, I'm mangling, but he asks Yamada to look into these mysterious deaths. They do fear for the life of the heir to the throne. Taiko? No. That's someone else. Anyway, see, again, that's why I didn't want to get into all the different names and things. But the prince asks Yamada to look into it. And so Yamada goes out and he talks to his different contacts. There's this old priest, Kenji, who likes to sit out and, beg. And, but he's got his ear to the ground and he knows stuff. So Yamada goes to Kenji and talks to him. And there's a ghost on this bridge that he talks to about things. And, ghosts know even more than people do. And like I said, the ghosts and demons and things are normal here. And I love the ghosts. Because, like, the ghost that Yamada goes and talks to on the bridge is basically a lantern with eyes and a mouth. And I just love that. It's very ancient Japan. Excuse me. But aside from this mystery, we also have this sort of B story. Yamada meets a woman named Lady Snow. At least that's what she calls herself. And she says that she can prove that Yamada's father was not a traitor. And his execution was actually murder. And she can clear the Yamada name. Or the Monogatari name. Although I think it would be the Yamada name, because I think they switch. And again, I'm getting into stuff I really don't know about. Anyway, so you have Lady Snow and this other story with Yamada's father. And there's all sorts of palace intrigue going on. And this is a very, from what I know, from the things I've read, and what I know comes from fiction, books, and movies, Kurosawa movies, and different things. But this book is very Japanese. I love that there's a form of coded communication that is poems. So Yamada will receive a message, and it will be the first 3 lines of a poem. And Yamada, being who he is, and knowing who it came from, typically, he can figure out the hidden message within the poem. It's not coded like, this symbol or letter stands for a different symbol or letter. It reads like the first 3 lines of a poem, a very haiku type thing. But the recipient, the proper recipient, will know that there's a hidden meaning underneath it all. And then in reply, the recipient will write the last 2 lines of the poem and send it back. And then whoever wrote the original message gets their answer. And again, only they will be able to interpret, hopefully, only they will be able to interpret the hidden meaning within the poem. I really love that. And of course, you've got a lot of things, like tea ceremonies and the very, very prim and proper etiquette of the court and the etiquette between men and women and people of different stations. Again, all very ancient Japan. And to me, it's fascinating. And it's all in here. It's a very beautiful book. A lot of the imagery, very beautiful. A lot of very quiet moments. And I like that kind of stuff. Excuse me. Excuse me again. There are points where the story gets a bit repetitive. Where you have, Yamada is asked to investigate. And so he'll go, say he goes and talks to Kenji. And then he'll go home and think about things and go to sleep. And the next day he'll have another question. So he'll go and talk to Kenji. And then he goes home and thinks about things and goes to sleep. And he gets up the next day and he has some other questions for somebody else. So he'll go and talk to them. And then he goes home. So this does happen a couple of times. So there's that, but it is so beautifully written. It's not an action-packed book. This isn't a bunch of samurai sword fights and things. There are a few action scenes, but it's more of the mystery and the palace intrigue and the question of what really happened with Yamada's father, and just, I think, immersing yourself in the culture of ancient Japan. Again, I'm not an expert, but to me it feels very authentic, even with the supernatural element to it. It's a subject that fascinates me, and I really enjoyed this. And like I said, I do love that cover. It's not a slow read, but it's a slower paced story. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just not, like I said, it's not an action-packed story. There are those bits, especially when things come to a head at the end. But it's just, to me, it's fascinating. The whole culture, the characters, the ghosts and the spirits. Like I said, I love the image of some of the ghosts and the different creatures. I think there's probably a wider variety in the other book, Yamada, Monogatari, Demon Hunter, simply because it's short stories, so you have more going on, or more different things. Anyway, and this is just one story, so it's a little more focused in certain areas. I don't know what I'm trying to say. But I felt that everything was wrapped up in a satisfactory manner. I don't think there were any loose threads. I wasn't disappointed in how things ended up, which happens sometimes. It just again, a very beautifully written story. A fascinating culture. And so, with that, I think I covered just about everything. Not the greatest drawings here, but I like the weird ghosts so much, and one in particular was just a walking stick with eyes and a mouth. So this is incredibly simplistic, but I give Yamada Monogatari to Break the Demon Gate, I give it 4 out of 5 ghost walking sticks. So, I mean, that's incredibly simplistic, but I just really wanted to draw a stick and put eyes and a mouth on it. You know, there's so many other things I could have gone with, but that's what I chose. So 4 out of 5. Not a perfect 5, simply because, as I said, it does get a bit repetitive at points. But overall, just a really beautifully told, fascinating story of a fascinating culture, fascinating to me. I love the character of Yamada no Goji, or Lord Yamada, or whatever you're going to call him. He's definitely a flawed character, but he can be a very heroic character. And all the ancillary characters, Kenji, Lady Snow, Prince Kanemore, some of the others. There's a kind of a street urchin who's taken in by Lady Snow. I can't remember his name, and I didn't write it down in my notes. But a really interesting character. And the bad guy, the ex-minister of justice. Again, I didn't write his name down. I didn't think I was going to talk too much about him. But it ties in with all the palace intrigue and everything. A really interesting character. And I love that intrigue and just how things worked back then. And of course, you know, everything was about honor and propriety. Is that the right word I'm looking for? And yet there was always that intrigue, I think. And a lot of people were kind of two-faced. And a lot of things had double meanings, kind of like the poetry with hidden messages. It's just fascinating. So 4 out of 5, I do recommend it, especially if this is the type of, you know, if you're interested in ancient Japan and samurai, before they were samurai. I'm looking forward to the next book, very much. As a matter of fact, I'm going to check on Amazon and see if they have a release date yet. So, as always, I will have a link in the description below where you can pick up the book. I picked it up at Barnes & Noble, so it is out there in the world, but I'll have a link for Amazon if you don't want to go out into the world. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, if you want to correct my Japanese, put all that in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. As always, just post a spoiler warning. Please like, share, and subscribe. I think that covers everything. Love that cover. Just the image. Big fan of that stuff. So, this is the Low Budget Review Show. I'm Eric Smith, and until next time, read more books.